Well, I think essentially this nuclear summit was a public relations operation on the part of the Obama administration. The focus, and particularly the media focus, was on nuclear terrorism and the impending dangers of a nuclear attack by Islamic terrorists, namely Al-Qaeda. The main threat, according to both the Bush and Obama administrations, is that Al-Qaeda constitutes a nuclear threat, that Al-Qaeda has the capabilities of launching a nuclear attack, of obtaining nuclear materials, and all this, of course, started prior to the war on Iraq, when Colin Powell actually presented indications of a dirty bomb attack, radioactive dirty bomb attack on US cities. And since then, it's been incorporated in military documents. And what I think is disturbing about this summit in Washington is the fact that the real threat to global security is nuclear war between countries. It's not Al-Qaeda, which in any event is known to constitute an intelligence asset of the CIA. It's an elusive network of organizations. The real threat is the threat of nuclear war, and particularly the threat of a nuclear attack by the United States and Israel directed against Iran. These preparations have been ongoing since 2004, and with the stockpiling of weapons of mass destruction, including nuclear weapons, and they are directed at Iran, and certainly Israel is part of that military alliance. I think that if Israel is to launch those actions against Iran, they will be coordinated with the United States and its NATO partners. Israel will not launch a war on its own. Its air defense system is integrated with that of the United States and NATO. But certainly the danger is there. Israel is a nuclear power. It has very significant capabilities. According to some Israel's nuclear capabilities exceed those of Great Britain, in other words, the United Kingdom. And there's a very close partnership between the United States, NATO, and Israel with regard to the Iranian question. I do believe that the purpose of these various initiatives is essentially to prepare the public for a possible extension of the Middle East war, and it's also to neutralize any kind of opposition which might come from Russia and China. Now, as to whether this military action against Iran will take place or not is at this stage impossible to ascertain. The war preparations have been ongoing. They are in an advanced state of readiness. If any kind of attack against Iran occurs, we are in a World War III scenario. And if nuclear weapons are used, then we have to decide who is behind them. It's not bin Laden. It's Obama, okay? Barack Obama as commander-in-chief and president of the United States, which ultimately has a far-reaching decision in this regard. And so from our standpoint, the United States remains the major threat to global security. And also the fact that a US president, recipient of a Nobel Prize, should insinuate that the US has the right to use nuclear weapons against Iran is diabolical and criminal. And I think we should understand the double standards which prevail, and also the level of media disinformation which pervades the Western press. The fact that this issue of Al-Qaeda being some kind of upcoming nuclear power should be used as a smokescreen is absurd. The next thing is that we should invite bin Laden to the Security Council. Now, there's an element of falsehood, of fabrication in these reports, which is so striking. And the question is, should we take the United States seriously in these initiatives? Now, at the same time, this summit was a pretext for the President of the United States to establish a dialogue with China and Russia regarding this matter. And also there's a certain amount of arm twisting with regard to the sanctions regime regarding Iran, and the fact that both China and Russia at this particular stage are firmly opposed to any kind of military action or punitive action directed against Iran. I think the main objective of Washington is to weaken Russia and China and any other nuclear state which could be in its way, including North Korea, but it's mainly Russia and China, and to dictate, to essentially establish a monopoly of weapons of mass destruction. We're not dealing with reducing the levels of weaponry in global terms. In fact, we see that the United States now has increased its defense spending to significant levels, in fact taking up virtually all its tax revenues to finance the military stockpiling, and at the same time wants to provide the image that in fact some kind of disarmament is occurring. But in fact what Washington's agenda is essentially to weaken potential encroachments and adversaries in the global arena. China and Russia do not constitute a threat to global security, but they still have significant military might and capabilities to oppose an aggressive act by the United States of America and its NATO partners. So that essentially, I think what Washington seeks to disarm any kind of encroachment to achieving global military hegemony and ultimately the purpose of its long war. It's a plan of global conquest. We have to look at the broader picture, and the broader picture is one of military escalation as well as economic conquest. And it's not. We are at a situation where there's military escalation, and at the same time there's a global economic crisis. But that global economic crisis is also an opportunity for the dominant military powers to extend their economic grip worldwide. And how do they do it? They do it through the hegemony of the dollar and the euro, which is imposed on other countries around the world, particularly developing countries.